This edition of One Play Wednesday is going to be a film study focus on what is fast becoming one of my favorite play concepts that Todd Monken has utilized in 2024. Now, I don't remember seeing this trap option concept that much earlier in the season. I hesitate to even call it an option because on the two iterations I'm going to show you here and the recent utilization of it, I don't actually think Lamar Jackson could keep the football on the particular plays that I'm going to show you, but that's not the point. The larger issue is that the defense thinks that it could be a read play, and so they have to react accordingly. There's some real keys involved in this play that are breaking defenses that either A, run their outside linebacker or edge defender directly at the quarterback to force a give read. And as it relates to the Steelers game this weekend, I do think that the Steelers are going to drastically change how they deal with the option game. And in my opinion, this play concept is one of the main reasons for it. Todd Monken and the offensive staff for the Ravens have figured out a way to break the Steelers defense and others of the way they play option concepts because of this trap play. So we'll get to the film, and I've got film from games against the Steelers, the Browns this past week in Week 18, and the Chargers from earlier on in the season. This is the first time I'm going to show this. I'll circle back to this one a little bit later on. It looks like a read to the defense. This is a third quarter run play. If you recall, Derrick Henry got shut down in the first half of this game against the Browns and then came back and just dominated in the second half. Had runs of 25 yards, 20 yards, and then, of course, the 43-yard touchdown run later on. So they're creating a 4-on-3 or 3-on-2. It's just a matter of whether you want to include Lamar Jackson in this count or not. I'm going to come back to this in a moment, but let's call it 4-on-3 at first. There's your 4 Ravens players, and there's your 3 Browns players here. Why? How? Because this player is being eliminated from the run fit. Why? Because you're getting an influence trap by the front side guard pulling away from the intended point of attack. And if this defensive tackle crosses the face of the center, then Derrick Henry's just going to cut it back, which is what he does here. If Tyler Linderbaum is able to successfully execute this back block, down block, whatever you want to call it, and the trap occurs in the form of Voorhees, then Derrick Henry could take this front side off of the back side of Tyler Linderbaum. It's not the way it works out here. My point is they're creating angles. They're creating a numbers advantage, first of all, with this trap option concept. And then second of all, they're creating angles to give one of the best running backs in the league, or throughout history, really, Derrick Henry at this point, the ability to read it and respond to the trap block and or the back block. I almost wonder if they're teaching Henry to read the defensive tackle's reaction to Tyler Linderbaum's block. I can't prove that. It's not unheard of, but why do this? I know I've talked about these concepts many times, so forgive me if you think that this is regurgitated content. But as I've continued to look at the film against the Browns this week and the Texans film and the Steelers film from the week before that, I've realized that I think the Ravens were forced to evolve to this play. I think it's a key breaker for them. So consider this an establishing shot of what TJ Watt and the Steelers OLBs have historically done against Lamar Jackson anytime there's a read option. Basically run right at him, front him up. They're not going to run to his inside shoulder. They're not just going to be flat on him. They're going to run to his outside shoulder, and depending on the level of the athlete, they'll be coached to go at a different width. If the guy's not athletically comparable to the quarterback, then you teach him to be wider. If the guy is athletically comparable, you might teach the outside hip, whatever. It's probably a different aiming point for different guys, but the point is it's a give read. Now, this is not trap, just so you know. This is just good old pin pull, down block by Falele, and then Rosengarten is pulling and inserting into what becomes the B gap to go get Patrick Queen. It's a great concept in and of itself. It's just a different version of the offense, or a different version of the option, in terms of the way that they're blocking it. Rather than utilize a combo, which might not be advantageous depending on the players, depending on the alignment of the inside linebacker, where he is lined up. In this case, he's stacked on Derrick Henry, also stacked on that defensive tackle, and then moves to the inside. This could be a call that's on the field. It could be the way the Ravens wanted to block it by default going into the game. It really doesn't matter. I have my own opinions on it. In fact, I've already put it out in film study form. I think it's a great adjustment to combo with guys that can combo and pin pull with guys who cannot combo consistently. But the larger point here is, if you ask me, that again, they've created a 4-on-3 or a 3-on-2. It just depends on whether you want to add Lamar here with Henry, Rosengarten, and Falele as your 4, and then your 3 defenders for the Steelers. They've created a numerical advantage, and they've created good angles. Why? Because the Steelers and multiple NFL defenses are saying, we're going to run right at the quarterback and force a give read. I think that might change this weekend. I really do. That's the impetus for this video. That's the motivation for it, to be honest with you. Look, it's a really great job by Patrick Queen on this individual play. He shocks Roger Rosengarten and then makes the tackle. It still ends up being a 6 or 6.5 yard gain. Really, it was almost close, closer to a 2nd and 3 than closer to a 2nd and 4 on the ensuing snap. To draw some comparisons to it a little bit more, this is actually not trap. So neither was the previous play. It was just pin pull zone option, if you ask me. This is a dual read variety, and the Chargers are coming up with their own answer for how to handle Lamar as a weapon. NFL defenses are telling us what they think of Lamar Jackson based upon their reactions to these option schemes. They want the ball out of his hands oftentimes. That's what the Steelers have historically done. And in large manner, that's what the Chargers are getting accomplished here from a pre-snap alignment. This is an inside linebacker. I think it's Haney, who's walked up as an OLB. So he's essentially lined up outside of Bosa. He's wider than Bosa, who would normally be the read man. For the purposes of this play and my explanation, I'm still going to call Bosa the read man. If you were only looking at the read man, Bosa, this would be a give. But Lamar knows he's next level in terms of his ability to read the option, in my opinion. Why? Because he's done it so many times in live speed and seen so many different looks. He understands, hey, even if I keep this and I've got likely as a potential lead blocker, this guy, guess what he's doing? The same thing that TJ Watt did on the previous play that I showed you. This is dual read option, in case you don't know. People have different names for it. Likely's just reading the edge defender the same way Lamar is, and he'll make his movement or his cut depending on the response of that inside linebacker, who technically is lined up as an OLB on this play. From years of executing this in high-pressure situations, the Ravens have a deeper bag of option concepts that they can go to. Now, the main concept I'm focusing on in this play, the trap play, in fact, I don't think is a read. But the point is the defense can't know that. There are some pre-snap indicators, obviously, with likely being opposite of the running back, especially on 3rd and 1, 3rd and 2. We all know that, especially if you've watched any Ravens content creators consistently. Here's the read man. So to focus just on him, this should be a keep. But again, Lamar has awareness that there is a second player outside who is responsible for him. You can see they are staring directly at each other. Lamar understood what was happening by the Chargers lining that guy up there. And so as it relates to the trap option play or the trap play that I've shown you, I think the Ravens through the course of the season have said, all right, we've got to figure out ways to handle guys that are just going to force us to give the football. And in my opinion, they're gaining, conceptually, the Ravens are gaining either a half man or a full man advantage at the point of attack by this trap play, making it look like it's an actual read option where Lamar could keep it, forces the defense to dedicate a player to the quarterback. In this case, it's the edge defender typically, not on the previous play against the Chargers. So we're going to circle back here to the trap play. And I'm going to continue to refer to it as trap option just because for the defense, in the moment, it certainly looks like an option. I think you'll agree too, but feel free to let me know in the comment section if you just want me to call it trap. It probably, whether you're willing to call it trap or trap option or just a read option, probably is related to how old you are. I'm old enough that we would generally just call it trap, but we were actually a spread team when I was a very young coach. And so my first exposure to the game from a schematic standpoint dealt with option concepts. So we would still call it a trap read, even though in this particular case, I don't think Lamar is actually going to keep it. The tag or the portion of this that would be the secondary option, theoretically, would be a bubble out here to Zay Flowers. The triple or third portion of it could be Lamar as the keep, or you can do that in reverse with Lamar as the second portion of it, Flowers on the bubble as the third. In any case, this is the first time that I remember seeing it. And I remember going, how did that open up so quickly? Like, what happened there? Well, the Steelers are taking their edge defender, and pushing him right at Lamar's face, not with as much speed and commitment as TJ Watt. As Preston Smith, he's bigger, bulkier, perhaps stronger, but TJ Watt has certainly got a great acceleration, and TJ Watt really wants to get his hands on Lamar. He has for years. This looks like a cheat code the longer I look at it as it relates to the Steelers. And if you're a Steelers fan who's listened this long, first of all, I have tremendous respect for the Steelers defense, not just in 2024, but historically, dating all the way back to Dick LeBeau. And so it's my belief that they're going to come into this game on Saturday with different answers, different solutions for the questions that the Ravens option game poses. The difficulty is, how do you know whether it's going to be trap? How do you know whether it's going to be dual read? How do you know whether it's just going to be a typical zone read or a pin pull like I showed you against the Steelers earlier on when Patrick Queen was able to shed off of Roger Rosengarten and hold Derrick Henry to a 6 or a 7-yard gain. So this is the same play that I just showed you from the end zone angle. Watch what happens to this D tackle when you get this influence pull. So there's the trap concept. So we're talking about what's happening here. Meaning Linderbaum is blocking back on Hayward, and then Mekari is pulling and supposed to kick out Benton. But because Falele is pulling, that's the influence part of it. Not only are you getting this natural widening up of Benton, 95, you're also getting Patrick Queen taken away from the point of attack. And that's how the numbers are created. Meaning the 4-on-3, Lamar, Henry, Linderbaum, Stanley, against the 3 defenders for the Steelers. From a formation standpoint, this is exactly what the option is designed to do. From a structural standpoint, it's exactly what the option is designed to do. Let's say that you weren't pulling Falele and you were just zoning this. If Falele's step was here and Linderbaum's step was, let's just say they wanted to combo here up to here, you still got a whole lot that you can get done with Stanley, so it's not really the way that it would get accomplished. But Queen wouldn't be so reactive in this direction. Why? Because Falele wouldn't be pulling in that direction. That's his primary key, and the Ravens have figured that out. It's basic football. I mean, inside linebackers read the guards initially, whether they're looking at the back with high beams, low beams, whatever. I think that this is a key breaker, and I think that this is something that the Ravens have developed to really make it to where the OLB can't be right. It's a fascinating play. I could watch it in all their iterations of the option, specifically from the end zone angle. So forgive me if I've nerded out too much on it and produced too much concept or too much content on it. This will be the final look, final 2 looks at the play. This is the one against the Browns last week. So Lamar looking at the edge defender. And again, you've got the frontside guard Falele pulling, and that is why this inside linebacker is reacting and going in that direction. Look at his steps, matching or mirroring Falele. Now, there's something to be said here as well, and I'm going to get to it in a moment. Remember the first play of the game? It's a tackle for loss by Myles Garrett. We're pulling the front side lineman. Well, it would be the guard, but when I give it to you in a moment, you'll be able to see it. I think there's some times where Monken is using plays early in the game to implant or install reads or reactions in particular players on the defense. In this case, the front side inside linebacker. So when I say front side inside linebacker, I'm talking about this guy. Why? Because the design of the play is for Henry to hit this here. It's a trap concept. So let me get rid of most of the lines. Powers trapping that defensive tackle right there would theoretically open up Henry to go downhill. But we still have an issue on how to handle the front side inside linebacker, how to handle the backside inside linebacker on that, just if it was a trap concept. The way that it would get done generally would be here, Falele there, and then trap, getting this guy out of there. We'd still have to handle the front side inside linebacker with one or both of these 2 guys. So instead, what the Ravens doing with the influence trap is using Falele to pull and kick out as well. And then because we have a guy with incredible vision and an ability to cut, slalom, downhill, whatever you want to call it, and Derrick Henry, he sees the nose tackle climb over the top, cross Linderbaum's face, and he busts this one for a 20-yard gain. That's the first play that I showed you in this video. I'm going to fast forward here a little bit to the end zone angle. So this is the first play of the game. And now it's not the guard pulling, it's the tackle. But I still want you to watch the reaction of the linebacker as we get the pin pull nature of this. This is pin pull, this is not trap. I think that early in the game against the Steelers, we may see something like this to gauge their reaction of it. Now, the reason why it's not Falele pulling is because the alignment of this player here. If you had a 3 technique here, then you would probably get a down block by Rosengarten, and Falele would be the guy who would try to pull and wrap to the outside. We still got to get the pin down on Myles Garrett accomplished, which is going to be borderline impossible. My point is, I think early in the game against the Steelers, you may see a play like this one that's designed to go off tackle. The blocking scheme, don't get caught up in that and the fact that it's a tackle pulling. You still have an inside linebacker who sees it out of his peripheral vision and then is reacting to it off tackle. He's also just seeing the ball handed off to Derrick Henry. My point is there might be install plays run by Todd Monken and the Ravens offense early in the game to give the front side inside linebacker, basically the guy who's opposite the running back from an alignment standpoint on the other side of the midline, to give him that read so that we can set up the trap later on in the game. Again, I refer to it as trap option because it looks like it could be a keep by Lamar post snap. It certainly hasn't been so far. I think that the Ravens' ability to use so many different versions of the option, first of all, it illustrates a lot of trust by the offensive staff, by Todd Monken, but it really comes down to Lamar. And to a certain degree, we have to say that the years he spent in Greg Roman's system are now providing us ancillary benefits more than almost 2 full years after Greg Roman was let go, meaning Lamar comes pre-installed like a computer that's already built for you with certain programs and hardware already there to utilize. And as the season goes on, it's my opinion that we've tweaked the option a little bit and added this trap play that really, with the combination of all the other option looks that Todd Monken and the Ravens use, has made it borderline impossible for teams to defend and stop consistently. I think that's why Derrick Henry, I think it's one of the reasons, why Derrick Henry has had so many big runs here late in the season. Derrick Henry's playing well. Offensive line playing better, of course. No discussion about that. You won't get any argument from me necessarily. I do think we had issues in the first half of the Browns game, specifically with guys crossing our face and with down blocks. But this concept, I think, is a key breaker that's forcing defenses, forcing inside linebackers specifically to have questions in their mind post-snap. How do I react to this given the totality of what the Ravens' run game presents? I'm not sure what your thoughts are on the play. Maybe you think I expanded too much on it, doing a almost 20-minute video on one play concept, but I was trying to explain to you what I think is the progression of where this play came from and why the Ravens are able to get that 4-on-3 or that 3-on-2. Really, if we eliminate Lamar and the edge defender from the discussion, it really becomes a 3-on-2 in some tight space. But Derrick Henry coming downhill, able to read that nose tackle, is going to get yards. And I think it's, at this point in time so far, it's been borderline unstoppable. I think the Steelers have got some real difficult questions to try to answer on Saturday. Well, this week during their practice sessions and their film study as they create their game plan. Appreciate you guys' time. One Play Wednesday is usually a whole lot shorter video. This one went longer. I love the option game. I love how the Ravens run it. It's very different than pretty much every team in the NFL other than the Philadelphia Eagles at this point, because Jalen Hurts has spent a significant amount of time reading the option. I would say if they had a new offensive coordinator show up each year, he would also present as with pre-installed option plays that the new offensive staff could utilize. In this case, the Ravens have evolved to this one later in 2024 to Derrick Henry and the offense's benefit. Appreciate you guys' time. If you enjoyed this video, film study breakdown of the trap concept, then please consider grabbing a link to this video, sharing it out on social media to help this content get more reach.